this Tuesday, you better have a flak jacket on and a helmet. I'm not kidding you. The acting Attorney General of the United States fired by President Trump. Former President Barack Obama breaks precedent and protocol by speaking out. The city of Lansing, Michigan, on track to become the next sanctuary city. I'm not kidding. Starbucks says it'd rather hire refugees than Americans. Also true. And the SCOTUS pick, well, the Supreme Court pick is going to happen tonight. On the program today, Frank Vernuccio, John Lott, Senator Patrick Colbeck, Byron Henry, the director of the New York Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, because Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, says drunk driving is no big deal. And Boris Epshteyn, directly from the Trump White House here today. What a show it is. Strap it on, tighten that helmet down, get some coffee. Let's do it. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got
Yeah,
it.
stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
My homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, there's so much to get to. We just cannot waste a moment here. Let's start with President Trump last night firing acting Attorney General Sally Yates. Acting Attorney General Sally Yates, appointed by Barack Obama, said she would not enforce President Trump's executive order limiting refugees from 7 countries for just 120 days. She would not honor the 120-day temporary pause in immigration from refugees while we figure out our security so that we can make sure that America is safe. She got fired. Boom. Gone. She got the boot. You're fired. He has named Dana Bonte, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, as acting Attorney General in the interim. Sally Yates has been relieved of her obstructionist behavior. She's gone, as well she should be. Why is it wrong to protect America? Why is everybody so concerned about protecting America? I can tell you that it is the right thing to do. They know it. You know it. She didn't know it, but she might know it now. Meanwhile, former President Barack Obama has broken precedent and protocol in one stealth move, and this is what you're going to face for the next 4 years. Barack Obama coming out and criticizing openly in a statement Donald Trump's decisions as president. It's never happened, not in my lifetime. The soonest I can find anything, any comment from any previous president is several months later when Gerald Ford made a comment about Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter took almost 8 months to make any comments about Ronald Reagan. Don't know that Reagan ever made any comments about Bill Clinton, and the list goes on and on and on. You'd have to go back 3 generations to find a former president being critical of the new president in this way. It's just the way it is. Obama, who has remained silent for a whole 10 days, pledged before leaving office to only speak about Trump's policies where I think our core values may be at stake. This is your law, Mr. Obama. This is your law that you signed in 2015 on the 18th of December. Alluding to the widespread protests taking place in major airports and cities in response to the new immigration policy, Mr. Obama's spokesman says that Obama is heartened by the level of engagement taking place in community. He is encouraging the protests and the chaos. The most divisive president in American history is not done with his Saul Alinsky book yet, apparently. Apparently, he still wants to stir the pot. He wants to make as much trouble as is humanly possible. So he's speaking out 10 days after leaving office. You know why? Because his feelings are hurt. Barack Obama's feelings are hurt because Hillary Clinton didn't get elected. Remember how he said he would take it personally if she wasn't elected? Well, guess what? He's taking it personally, and therefore he's now speaking out. Well, let me assure you, this is a new precedent, and not a good one. It creates more chaos on the world stage. It creates more division here at home. It creates more problems everywhere. This is what's happening in your country. It's time to stand up. I've been on the BBC several times, twice again yesterday, and the Brits keep asking me, well, how do ordinary Americans feel? Let me tell you how ordinary Americans feel. They feel just fine about Donald Trump. This is who they voted for. This is what he said he was going to do. He is the president of the United States. His first action is making America safe. Then he'll work on the economy, and later today he'll pick a Supreme Court, a nominee to be a Supreme Court justice. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. What shocks everybody on the left is that he's doing it at a pace that they can't keep up with. He's doing it at a pace that they cannot keep up with. Meanwhile, I want you to pay attention to my next little bit here. For all of you folks that love stopping at Starbucks, you might want to rethink that. For all of you that want to stop at Starbucks today, you may want to rethink that idea. Starbucks has announced it now plans to hire 10,000 refugees in response to President Trump. They're making refugees the priority. They are making refugees the priority over 50,000 homeless veterans in America. 500,000 U.S. veterans are unemployed today. I've never heard Starbucks come out and say, hey, we need to hire veterans. 42 million people in America today don't have enough food to make it for the next 24 hours. 42 million. And Howard Schultz wants to make sure we need to hire these refugees. I've got an idea. Maybe we should put America first, just like the president says. You know how many of those 42 million are children? You know how many children of those 500,000 unemployed vets have little chance of going to school or going to college or having a good meal tonight? What about single women that are in shelters today, praying to survive, hoping to God they could have a job? And Howard Schultz of Starbucks wants to put his effort behind refugees coming here because Donald Trump had the nerve to put America first and say we need to make America safe for 120 days, a temporary pause. A temporary pause in the flow of refugees from countries that we can't get proper information from. And for this, Howard Schultz says he will focus his efforts on hiring refugees. Well, I will focus my efforts on never, ever going to Starbucks again. Am I crystal clear? Never. Coffee is not political. Leave it that way. If you make the coffee political, there's a problem. We'll discuss the politics. You make the coffee and leave it at that. It's 14 after. You'll need another cup, but don't you dare drink Starbucks listening to this program. I'm Steve Gruber. I'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
First thing I remember was asking Papa why.
All right, you buckled in because it only gets better from here, all right? It gets better from here. All right, Alex, I'm gonna grab that sound from the mayor of New York. Mayor Bill de Blasio. Mayor Bill de Blasio says that drunk driving is not a serious offense. And therefore, if you're an illegal alien in America and you get caught drunk driving, he's gonna allow you to remain protected under the sanctuary city provisions of the city of New York. Yeah, Bill de Blasio doesn't think that drunk driving is too serious. And in fact, if you don't believe me, take a listen. Here it is. Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York talking about drunk driving. Go.
Jake, there are 170 offenses in that law that are listed as serious and violent crimes that lead to automatic cooperation between the city of New York and our federal partners. So any serious and violent crime, we're going to work with them. Someone commits a minor offense. For example, right now, if you didn't have clear definitions like we have, let's say someone had a small amount of marijuana, let's say someone went through a stop sign, they could be deported for that, and their family could be torn apart, and you could have children left behind where the breadwinner in the family is sent back to a home country. That is not good for anyone. So we differentiate. Anyone who's violent, anyone who's a serious threat to society, we agree, we'll work with the federal partners, and they get deported. But we are not going to see, with 500,000 undocumented people here, this would be true for 11 to 12 million undocumented folks in this country, the vast majority of whom are law-abiding. We're not going to see families torn apart over a very minor offense.
But is grand larceny or drunk driving a very minor offense?
Drunk driving that does not lead to any other negative outcome, I could define as that.
So there you go. Drunk driving, a minor offense. Who in the audience here would beg to differ? Who in the audience here would beg to differ about the severity of drunk driving? I will tell you that Rich Mallow will be joining me here on the program a bit later. He is the New York State Executive Director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. He has a very different opinion than Mayor de Blasio, the ultra-liberal mayor defending the sanctuary city status of New York by saying we will not send drunk drivers home. Hell, we might even throw a party for them. And while you're talking about sanctuary cities, you'll now need to include the city of Lansing, Michigan, your state capital. In a surprise move last night, near the end of the city council meeting, the 8-member council, along with Mayor Verge Bonero's administration, agreed to draft a resolution that could be up for a vote in as little as 2 weeks. That's right, Lansing, Michigan, moving quickly to become a sanctuary city, because that clearly must be the number one priority in Michigan today, is for Lansing, Michigan to be a sanctuary city led apparently by Verge Bonero and the city council in the city of Lansing. How's that make you feel? Is that the priority in Lansing? Because we must have all of the jobs taken care of, no unemployment in Lansing. Homelessness must have been taken care of while I wasn't around. Unemployment rates must have been taken care of. Our vets must be taken care of just perfectly well in the city of Lansing. Mayor Bonero, is this really the best thing you've got in mind? And listen to this. At-large City Council member Kathy Dunbar made the motion, and she said, according to the Lansing State Journal, she doesn't care if a sanctuary city designation for Lansing means that President Trump's administration could take away up to $6.5 million in federal funding that the city gets annually. She said she doesn't care if $6.5 million headed for Lansing just goes away. Instead, she stressed the importance of protecting immigrants and refugees. I don't care about that $6 million because I don't think Trump is going to do it, said Dunbar. Unbelievable. You can direct your comments to the folks at Lansing City Hall, or you can contact me here, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Is Donald Trump doing the right thing? Do you support what Donald Trump is doing? Do you believe that he's following through on his promises to make America safe and make that a priority? 888-900-9966. What would you say to the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, Virgil Bonero, and city council members? And city council members who say it's time for Lansing to be a sanctuary city. What do you make of it? 888-900-9966. Seth Callis, a member of the Lansing chapter of BAM, by any means necessary, by the way, BAM, said the group plans to attend meetings until the council passes the resolution. We have a really concrete goal of making Lansing a declared sanctuary city, deliberate cooperation with the federal immigration authorities. Let's take Rick checking in from Pinckney. Rick, welcome to the program.
Hi. I'm with this announcement. I'm going to be calling my Senator Joe Hune, and I'm going to be calling my state representative. Oh gosh, what's her name?
Whatever it may be, go on.
Yeah, I'm going to be calling them, and telling them that, hey, we need to take action in our state. We need to cut off state funding to the city of Lansing, too. I know it's our state capital, but they need to stop funding the city. I mean, that money should not go to them.
$6.5 million in federal funds.
City, they can be sovereign and on their own.
Yeah, well, here's what I concern myself with. The people that in Lansing that don't have enough to eat this morning. The people that are veterans that don't have a place to stay tonight. What about the people that, don't have a job? Our priorities are taking care of people that don't even exist except in theory at this point. Refugees that may come here at some point so that we can protect them. It's absurd, Rick. Thanks for checking in. The hotline number is 888-900-9966. I'll take your thoughts throughout the rest of the day. Frank Vernuccio joining us next from the New York Analysis of Policy and Government. We'll talk about the drunk driving being a very minor offense, according to liberal Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City. Maybe he should raise the legal limit for drunk driving in New York. Maybe that would help things out, eh? Back in a moment.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
I refuse the love you had for me. I refuse the love and let it die.
All right. Welcome back to it. My next guest, Frank Vernuccio, regular contributor. Because he gets up at this hour, when too many people just can't drag themselves out of bed. Frank's ready for action. Frank Vernuccio, editor-in-chief, New York Analysis of Policy and Government. Welcome back.
Hey, great to be with you.
Yeah, you're into full contact at an early hour, which I greatly appreciate. Let's start with Sally Yates. Talk about full contact. Boom, you're gone.
Look, the reality of it is this administration is doing more in the first couple of days than most presidents do in an entire administration. That means there's a lot of criticism that's going to come down the pike.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. I want to just focus on several things that are going on. I mean, there's so much going on, it's hard to keep up with. But I want to talk about, so she's gone. Barack Obama breaks precedent and protocol and comes out and starts criticizing President Trump 10 days after he left office. It's unheard of in my life. In fact, I have to go back 3 generations to find anything even remotely comparable.
The fact of the matter is the level of criticism that this president has been receiving is unprecedented in U.S. history. The combination of factors, whether we're looking at the Black Lives Matter movement, which not only protested in a very serious way in Washington, whether it's the fact that they've marched in California saying kill white people, whether it's the folks who are burning American flags in cities around the country, whether it's the news media, which is in many cases simply furious that their chosen candidate lost the election. We are seeing something that goes beyond a protest movement, that goes beyond merely expressing freedom of thought. We're seeing something that is in its concerted and financed attempt to overturn the results of the 2016 election. This goes beyond politics. It is indeed close to a rebellion. When you have, for example, in the state of California, talking about ways to either secede or to suspend payments owed to the federal government, that's something far beyond anything we've seen before. Indeed, the only indicia we can see, or the only similarity we can see of something in the past, is firing on Fort Sumter after the election of Abraham Lincoln.
I think that California should not secede. I think it should be split in half so that the people of California are more appropriately represented, because a large millions of people in California are not represented at all by the people that run that state. That's a fact. By the way, there are something on the order of 73 sitting down, 16 senators, 57 House members, all Democrats, who supported this kind of executive order that Donald Trump put forth when their party was in power. And now that it is not, they scream bigotry, they scream xenophobia, they scream all these things. How completely disingenuous. They're liars.
Well, how come these folks are really the folks who are criticizing President Trump said nothing about that President Obama had the worst record in terms of appearances before the Supreme Court than any president in modern history? Where was the media then? Where were these protesters who are claiming they're worried about the rights of individuals? Where were they during the entire 8 years of the Obama administration?
I was asked last night during an appearance on Newsnight on the BBC if people where I live are supporting Donald Trump, even though he's doing all of these things. Of course, the BBC wildly left on many things. I said, not only are they supporting him, I believe if the election were held today, 10 days after he's been in office, he would win more votes than he did originally. And I believe that from the heart of this nation, seeing a politician doing exactly what he said he was going to do, people that are looking out for America first and safety. And this is not a ban on refugees. It's certainly not a ban on being Muslim, because the largest Muslim nation, Indonesia, isn't affected. The nation with the second largest amount of Muslims, that being India, isn't affected. Pakistan isn't affected. So it's nonsense to call it a Muslim ban, and it's for 120 days. Syria has a different circumstance because their paperwork is even more difficult to figure out, so it could take them a bit longer. But it's certainly not permanent. It's a temporary ban, and it's looking out for the best interest of America. And I believe because of that, Frank, that Donald Trump would do better today in election than he did in November.
In terms of that ban, let's look at some of the numbers. The population of Muslims throughout the world, 1.7 billion. The numbers of Muslim-majority countries, 50. Those countries that are actually affected by the ban, 7 out of the 50. Total population affected, 212.8 million out of a population of 1.7 billion. Those are trivial numbers compared to the totals. Indeed,
it is trivial. Here's a comment from one of the listeners that just came in moments ago. Not taking in Syrian refugees and closing our borders isn't mean or heartless. I lock the doors of my house each night. I don't lock them because I hate the people outside my house. I lock my doors because I love the people inside my house. How perfect is that?
It is. Your listener has an extraordinary gift for summarizing the whole thing just in a nutshell. Look, this is absolute nonsense. The protest here, simply doesn't deal with reality whatsoever. Oh, by the way, the fact that 8 U.S. Code, I believe it's 1182, gives the president this authority. What we saw in the past certainly supersedes or certainly overwhelms anything that President Trump has done so far. Can anyone forget the fact that President Carter, at the end of the 1970s, threw Iranian students out of the United States?
They don't even know that, Frank. That's the thing. They don't even know that 50,000 Iranian students were ordered to come and show up with their papers. Now, does that sound a little bit Nazi-esque? A little bit, eh? Show up with your papers. If you have ways to make you talk, bring your papers. And if you didn't have your papers in order, you were tossed. Nobody talks about that. Go on.
Nor does anyone talking, by the way, about the fact that President Obama actually outlined these countries and did something very similar as well. No one seems to want to talk about this, which, by the way, all goes to this point that it is no longer simply a protest. It's a concerted effort on the part of the media and a part of very well-financed leftist organizations to overturn the results of the 2016 election.
Well, it's not going to get overturned. And in fact, like I said, people are applauding this president for doing exactly what he said. He needs to remain steadfast, and he needs to remain on course at this point. And if the Democrats think they can stand in his way and stop it from happening, they've got a rude awakening coming. For example, tonight, the president is likely to name his nominee to replace Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. Democrats say they won't even take a vote on it. I can assure you, if they take that tact and that seat remains unfilled in 2018, there's going to be a sea change in the Senate that'll see them in a minority they will never soon recognize. Right or wrong?
Absolutely right. There's one other factor, and you just brought it up by that example. In many ways, these protests are not necessarily directed exclusively at Donald Trump. In many ways, they are part of what is starting to be a civil war for the Democrat Party leadership. The Democrat Party of Harry Truman or John F. Kennedy no longer exists. Particularly when we're talking about putting someone like Keith Ellison in charge of the DNC, the Democrat
a guy who embraced Louis Farrakhan, a guy that I can lovingly call a kook. I mean, seriously, Louis Farrakhan is a kook. There's no other good word for him, and he was supported by this candidate.
That's exactly right. And in fact, if Keith Ellison does get that position, we're going to have to see a real split within the Democratic Party. These folks who are doing the most vehement of the protesting,
yes,
in many ways are the ones who want to make sure the Democrat Party no longer exists in the format that we knew.
Well, I can tell you this, the Democratic Party of John Kennedy doesn't exist. Frank, I have to run. Always a pleasure. Glad you get up to do this with us. You're wonderful. Thank you.
Great being with you. Look forward to our next discussion.
All right, Frank Vernuccio there. I think it's a civil war for Western values and Western civilization, more accurately. Back after this.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
All right, well, maybe one of the most anticipated Supreme Court picks, in my lifetime, could come tonight, according to Donald Trump. My next guest, I've been looking towards this. It's going to be an important moment, to say the least. Dr. John Lott, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center here, which you can find at crimeresearch.org. Doctor, welcome back to the program.
Great to talk to you.
Critical pick, but it looks like it's a free, nearly full-on civil war with the left 10 days into Donald Trump's presidency. I wonder if anybody will even get a chance to get a confirmation vote or hearing. What do you think?
Well, I guess a number of Democrats are threatening on filibustering the nomination. I mean, who knows whether the Senate will change the rules on filibusters. It's too bad that we've kind of lost a lot of these rules in the Senate over the last few years to lose more. But, it's I think there'll eventually be a vote. One thing that the president has, he can always make a recess appointment. And since the Republicans control the Senate and the House, they can, on vacation times, they can go and put the Senate in recess. It's one of the things that traditionally has been prevented from being done when the opposition party controls the Senate. They'll just have the Senate convene every other day or so, even though the rest of the senators are not around town, in order to prevent recess appointments. But since the Republicans control that, at the very least, he's not going to do that right away, but he can do that, maybe in a couple months.
All right. So clearly one of the things that is, I don't like to call it a litmus test, but I guess it's a test of your thoughts and so forth, is how people come down on the Second Amendment. It's been a critical reason for the selection of the Supreme Court justice that will be put forth tonight. And during all of this, your organization, the CPRC, has done some original research and found that all but one of the 20 worst mass public shootings, 45 of the worst out of 50 in the world, occurred outside the United States, like the one that we heard about a couple of days ago at a mosque in Quebec City. These all happen in places outside of America. Tell me about your study.
Right. Well, we looked at the 50 worst mass public shootings around the world, not including ones over, battles over sovereignty. So Chechen rebels killing 383 people at a school in Russia is not included because they were fighting over trying to get sovereignty for Chechnya. But, it's amazing how many really horribly gruesome attacks that you see around the world that just don't get news coverage in the United States, even in Europe. You go back to 1970 and people forget all the Byron Meinhof gangs and other attacks in Europe during the 70s and 80s, where people would take machine guns into nightclubs or into airports and kill people. But you compare the United States to Europe or to the rest of the world, and the vast majority of the world is much more dangerous in terms of mass public shootings than the United States is.
But why is it then that the mass media, when it comes to mass shootings in America and even overseas, other outlets, Sky News, BBC, pick your poison, they take shots at America all the time, as if America is some sort of cartoon-esque Wild West that they make it out to be? It's strange to me. Why do they do that?
Because I think it fits a template in what their political agenda is. They want to make the United States, which has relatively high gun ownership, appear to be a place where there's tremendous violence. Of course, you and I have talked about the fact that things like concealed carry, allowing people to own guns to protect themselves, is a very important way of stopping terrorist attacks. If you only have people with, in uniform, it's kind of like putting people out there with a neon sign over their head that says, "Shoot me first." The fact that they're concealed carry permit holders make it riskier for these terrorists to go engage in their attacks. It also makes it safer for the armed police that you have in uniform to be able to, not have an attack against them. When the terrorist starts firing at an armed police officer, they reveal their position and make it possible that a concealed carry permit holder who's behind them or to the side or to the front is going to be able to respond and stop them. One of the amazing things, I just had a piece in the Wall Street Journal last week where, you look at Europe, and the vast majority of European countries, EU countries, won't allow off-duty police officers to be able to go and carry guns for protection. The big concert killing where 89 people were killed in Paris at a rock concert in November 2015, there were 8 off-duty police officers who were present at that concert, and yet none of them had a gun with them because they were obeying French law that forbade off-duty police officers to carry. Even off-duty police officers. No way to defend yourself. No way to do the right thing in case of emergency. And that's unbelievable. But you know what? I know what's going to happen here. We're on the phone with Dr. John Lott today. And this study that shows 45 of the worst mass killings occurred outside the United States, 45 out of 50, you'll get discredited in the mainstream media. They'll take shots at you. They'll tell you that it has no basis in reality and so on and so forth. They'll try to tear you down. You deal with that a lot, I guess. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for the last word. Well, what we try to do, whether it's in my book, The War on Guns, or whether it's the post that we put up on our website, is to give the specific cases. People can go and look them up and check them themselves to see whether or not they're true or not. And, it's very easy for people to find the cases in the United States. What's much harder and takes a lot of work is to go and find these cases around the world. And people miss them. The news media misses them. But if I provide the actual cases, the date, where they occurred, if people want to disagree, it's easy enough for them to go and check. There you go. Dr. John Lott, always a great conversation. You can find out more at crimeresearch.org. Check out his new book, The War on Guns, and so much more. Doctor, thank you for the conversation. Great talking to you. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back. The hotline, 888-900-9966.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses. All right. Come on now. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it off.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, the lines have been drawn. A lot to cover here today, but I want to be perfectly clear about the way we're going to have this conversation. And the conversation is about refugees and immigration to America, whether it's the temporary ban of refugees coming from 7 countries tied to terrorism, a 120-day ban while we get our act together, whether it's about that or the southern border or whatever it may be. We are a nation of immigrants. I will not allow this to descend into a debate or some sort of a vitriolic attack on immigrants. That's not my concern. This is a nation of immigrants. People from all sorts of nations and places and circumstances have come here to build this great country of ours. That is not my point. My point is the safety at this place and time of this country. And I'm going to hearken back to President Bill Clinton one more time before I take your phone calls, which I'll take them all here in order in just a moment. But President Bill Clinton said this during the State of the Union address in January of 1995. Go.
We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
It is against this backdrop that this conversation has gotten revved up, shall we say, and now Mayor Virgil Bonero of the city of Lansing, Michigan, wants to make Lansing a sanctuary city where illegal aliens are protected from the law, where the law isn't enforced the way it would be and should be. There's a reason we have laws in this country. We don't have a broken immigration system. We have a failure to enforce the laws we currently have on the books. We will start on the hotline with Jennifer. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. I do believe that it's time for the American people to clean our swamps at the beginning of our state level and get rid of the dead wood. These gentlemen, I'll call them gentlemen, although I don't feel they are placing themselves above the law, show no regard for the American people that are footing the bills for this, that are in danger of losing their lives if someone comes across who is not vetted. They are showing no leadership whatsoever. They don't belong in a position of authority. We need to get rid of them. It's very disturbing to think that all the laws that they want to pass and that they put forth at the state and county levels or the national levels we are expected to follow blindly, but they place themselves above these laws that cannot be tolerated. The people that are elected to office must adhere to the law, whether they like it or not. And I would walk on hot coals to put Donald Trump in there a second term. You bet.
Jennifer, thank you very much, as always. Mike standing by on the rotation from Ann Arbor. Mike, welcome to it.
I'll be brief. Yesterday, Alan Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley, both flaming liberal lawyers, constitutional experts, came out and they said President Trump was fully within his right to do what he did, and they fully agree with him. You can get those cuts, and they're interesting to hear. Also, the moment that Jeff Sessions becomes the Attorney General, rather than going after emails or anything else, what he needs to do is do a full RICO investigation of George Soros. This man is responsible for attacks on police officers through Black Lives Matter and other things. He is foaming revolution in the streets. This man needs to be stopped. And
let me ask you this, Mike.
Needs to go after him.
I don't disagree with that. In fact, Romania is investigating George Soros as we speak, my understanding.
Macedonia also.
Yeah, what do you think about the idea of Lansing Mayor Virgil Bonero pursuing sanctuary city status for the city of Lansing, your state capital?
I would run him out of town on a rail.
All right. Mike, thank you so much. Matt checking in Okemos. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, the good Muslims in America are getting a bad name from people coming from overseas into America and doing harm. So we need to protect the good name of the people we have here so we don't get stereotyped. Just like Ferguson.
Agreed.
Ferguson had people coming in from out of town doing the problems, and Ferguson got a bad name.
I agree. We need to protect the good name of good people living here already, calling America home, adhering to American traditions and American laws and American principles. Matt, I agree with you completely. This is not an attack on refugees or immigrants. This is merely stating that America has the right to create safe, secure borders and the right to choose who comes and who doesn't come to this country, Matt. That's my point. All right.
I agree with you. And it's just like at Mexico border. Them saying that we're going to ban all Mexicans is just like them saying we're going to ban all Muslims. Just because we're going to build a wall doesn't mean we're banning all Mexicans.
Completely absurd idea, Matt. Thank you for pointing that out. Rob is standing by in Ann Arbor with more. Rob, what are your thoughts today?
Hey, good morning, Steve. Yeah, this is a hot topic, obviously, being here in the country and also here in Ann Arbor being a sanctuary city. But I tell you, I'm not going to get up this morning and I'm going to go into Ann Arbor and start turning over and setting fire to police cars or start bashing in windows.
You're not?
So what I'm going to do, no, heck no. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to slowly drive in the opposite direction, and I'm going to take my grocery shopping, my haircut, everything else into other towns, whether it be Canton or Plymouth or Ypsilanti. I don't patronize Ann Arbor, or I'm not going to patronize East Lansing or any vendor or retailer, unfortunately. within a sanctuary city. So I'm going to take my money elsewhere. That's my way of protesting. And it's like me going down to the block or down to the end of the street, and some clown's got a house full of stolen items, VCRs or TVs. I can't buy that stuff. It's illegal for me to do that. I'm not going to go to a city that is harboring.
But hold on. What if you had a sanctuary electronics shop? I mean, seriously, what if you had a sanctuary electronics shop and the police were just kind of letting him slide? It was not a big deal and just letting it go.
No. Take him out. Take him out. Crack down.
Greatly appreciate that, Rob. Greatly appreciate your point. Rob's voting with his wallet. He may live in Ann Arbor and he may have to pay property taxes there, but when it comes to everything else, his money leaves town slowly. He waves as he goes by the restaurant. He waves as he goes by the grocery store and the hardware store and wherever else he may shop, and he takes his money elsewhere. What do you think about it? Lansing Mayor Virgil Bonero leading the push because he says this is not Trump's America and he will not allow it to happen, and he is leading the push for Lansing, Michigan to be a sanctuary city. Could cost as much as $6.5 million in federal funding, and members of the Lansing City Council last night said they do not care. It's your capital city. This is your state. What do you make of it? 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Meanwhile, Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, says he'll be hiring 10,000 refugees to help out over the next couple of years. Maybe he should help out 500,000 veterans that are unemployed today, 50,000 of which are homeless. Maybe he should help out the 42 million Americans that don't have enough food today, or a mother in a shelter just hoping to make it through the rest of today. Maybe that's who Howard Schultz should focus on. I'll tell you, I won't be at Starbucks ever again. 14 after.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Welcome back to it. It's Tuesday here on the program, and I got to be honest with you. This is all happening at such a pace. It's unbelievable. And the left, come on, guys. This is Barack Obama's law. Barack Obama's administration identified these 7 nations. It is a temporary ban, 120 days. It is not about bigotry or xenophobia. It's about 7 countries that have close ties to terrorism that we're trying to make sure that people that travel to the United States from those countries are properly vetted. And in the meantime, you've got the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, the capital city, along with the city council, saying they will not tolerate this. They will not put up with this. This is not President Trump's America. It is their America, and they will resist. And they are now pursuing sanctuary city status for the city of Lansing. So says Virgil Bonero, the mayor. He did that last night late during a city council meeting. Joining me now, State Senator Pat Colbeck. Pat, welcome to the program.
Hey, great to be with you, Steve.
If that's news to you, what do you make of it?
It's not news to me. Actually, it's something that, I don't know if you recall, a little while back when Governor Snyder put the pause button on the Syrian refugees coming into Michigan, I had put forward a resolution encouraging them to continue that pause button over the break, make sure that we made sure that we had adequate vetting processes, just like President Trump is saying, adequate vetting processes before we reopen that gate again. And I actually am pleased with what President Trump's doing. I think it's a common sense approach, and of course it opens him up to claims of being a racist. Well, last time I checked, Syria's not a race. And when you actually get into the Islamophobia claims and all this other stuff, I mean, it takes an appreciation that you're here to serve American citizens first and their security first, to stand up against all these false narratives.
And there are a lot of false narratives. You're exactly right. It's a ban on Muslims. False narrative. The number one Muslim, the largest Muslim nation in the world is Indonesia. The second largest population of Muslims live in India. 130 million live in India. And Pakistan.
It only 10% of the Muslim population.
Yeah, less than, some say. It's actually less than 10% of the world population currently. So let me talk to you about this, though. Do you think it is appropriate at this juncture for Lansing, Michigan, spurred on by its mayor Virgil Bonero, to be pursuing sanctuary city status at this time? Is it the proper thing to do? We've got veterans without jobs. We've got children that don't have enough to eat. We've got homelessness. We've got unemployment. And apparently the most important and pressing issue is about, the idea that refugees and illegal aliens should be able to come to Lansing without penalty. What do you make of it?
Well, absolutely. It's not proper at this time. It's not proper at any time. We are a nation of laws. And everything that we've seen under our previous president, President Obama, has been about undermining the concept of the rule of law. He's picked which laws he wants to enforce, which laws he doesn't want to enforce. And as a result, our police officers have been in the crossfire. And that blue line, that thin blue line here, they're actually undermining the role of law enforcement and the rule of law. And I'm happy to say, that it's about time that we have somebody that appreciates the concept of the rule of law. I like to joke that a lot of it's no joke, actually, but it's over the last 8 years, President Obama has kind of ruled with his pen and a phone, and he's kind of made a lot of edicts via executive order. Well, that kind of disappears pretty quickly, and I think what we've seen in the first week of President Trump's presidency is that he's pretty much erased Obama's legacy in 1 week.
What can you do in the state Senate? We're on the line with State Senator Patrick Colbeck here of Michigan. What can you do from a state Senate position in Michigan to prevent this sort of sanctuary city idea from taking root? Is there something you can do? Apparently, $6.5 million of federal funding would be at risk if Lansing pursues that. What about state funding? Are there other ways to prevent this from happening? I am fully open to immigrants, but I'm also one that respects the laws of the nation and of the state and of the municipality. We can't just run roughshod over the law.
I agree. First thing I need to do is respect my oath of office. And that oath of office means I'm going to support the Constitution, which provides the framework for these laws. So first and foremost, we need to encourage people to follow the law. And by definition, what they're talking about doing sanctuary cities, not just in Lansing, but also in Detroit, in Ann Arbor, all across the state, we've got to go off and start enforcing those laws, which means that if we have law enforcement officers that are coming across people that are illegally here in the country, then they should be detained for the INS to go off and process them in accordance with our federal law.
So how do we do that then? What do you do today? Do you talk to fellow lawmakers? What do you do today? Because this is a hot button issue, and it's about safety for the country, and it's about security for our state and everywhere else. We don't want to see happen here what's happened in other places. And we need to make sure that we vet people properly, that we have law enforcement has the proper tools to foil plans and plots that are out there every day. They're out there every day. And we need to make sure that we're safe. What do you do at the state level starting today?
Well, first of all, we got to play position, right? I'm a state legislator. I'm responsible for lawmaking, and making sure that those laws are adhered to is a responsibility of the executive branch. So I will use any tool that I have as a lawmaker to make sure that the executive branch is listening to the laws that we have. So ultimately, it comes down to Governor Snyder and the Attorney General to make sure that we're actually executing those laws. Now, as a legislator, when we get into the budget process, which is coming up here shortly, if we see that people aren't taking their job seriously in regards to enforcing laws that we have in place, then we should be looking at identifying whether or not they really need the resources that have been put in place to enforce the laws if they're not going to enforce the laws.
I think that's fair. Senator Patrick Colbeck here with us, and I know we're going to talk about some different things here, Senator, but this is the hot topic for today. I'd like to have you back, though, soon to talk about some more of these things. Great connection, greatly appreciated, and thanks for stopping in.
Hey, thanks a bunch, Steve, and everybody drive safe on the way in. It's kind of slippery.
There you go. A lot of snow out there across the state today. The hotline number, 888-900-9966. Back in a moment on The Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
Tuesday here on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll get back to the hot topics of the day in a moment. Because we're going to talk about another hot topic, and that's the challenge that I face here every day. There's so much news. I mean, there's like a dump truck worth of news on my desk every day when I get here. Like, say, the acting attorney general getting the boot overnight so that Donald Trump's immigration laws get enforced. Things like that, creates a lot of stir. At any rate, Obamacare has been in the focus of a conversation for, well, probably, I think it's safe to say, ever since it was put into place. And, everybody has an opinion on it, I would say. I've been affected by it, not in a good way, a couple of times, been forced off my insurance and back on, so on and so forth. But what about a healthcare alternative to insurance for those that are Catholic or Christian? There's something out there. You keep hearing this on the radio. And I said, you know what? I want to know what that's about. So I finally made a call. And when I say I mean Ivy made a call on our behalf to get somebody on the program. Lewis Brown, Director of Catholic Healthcare Ministries here. Lewis, welcome to the program.
Hi, great to be on your show, Steve.
Glad.
And
go ahead.
And happy to be director for the ministry, CMF Curo. It's a great thing to offer folks across the country.
So what is it? I mean, we hear these ads from different people that are like a shared responsibility thing. Is that what we're talking about here? And if so, how does it work compared to other more traditional insurance programs? Please explain in short terms so the listeners have a good understanding.
Sure. It's very different, Steve, from health insurance. Really, it's just not health insurance at all, but it's a situation in which you have households across the country, generally speaking, Christian households across the country that directly share their medical costs. So it's not insurance. Every month, at least with our ministry nationwide, we partner with a Protestant group, Samaritan Ministries International. Every month, I would send a check, if I'm a member of the ministry, which I am, to a different household. And I would know their needs, particularly that, the Smith family in Texas, their daughter has a broken leg. I send the equivalent of what we call a share payment, what is known as a premium payment in health insurance, but a share payment, I would send it as a member of the ministry directly to the family. So 1 month to the Smith family, the next month I send money to the Brown family, the next month I send it to the McCarty family, and so on and so forth. It's about the same amount every month. If I have a medical need, I will receive checks from across the country to pay for that medical need in full. And that's how it works. So there's 600,000 Americans nationwide.
Okay, so hold on, Lewis. I just want to ask you something because from my practical brain is kicking in there.
Sure.
So let's say you have a situation where you need $10,000 to pay a medical bill, and these checks start coming to your
Right.
to your mailbox. Is that a taxable event? Is that something you need to declare on your taxes? Does the IRS take an interest in what you're doing there?
Generally, no. I think with healthcare reform that's going to be going on in Washington this year, we're going to seek some clarification on that. There's not a definitive answer on that, but generally, no, it's not considered to be taxable income. That's the interpretation that we've seen to be really most prevalent, but that has not been something that's been definitively reached yet, but we're hoping that we can get clarity in healthcare reform. But again, this is not a small event. Near $1 billion a year in medical costs is paid for through health sharing. So this is something that's very prominent. This is not a new thing. It's a large part of the healthcare industry. Generally speaking, still health insurance is the overwhelming majority of folks pay for their health insurance pay for their medical costs through health insurance. Mm-hmm. But this is something that's done. Generally, state health insurance commissioners have agreed that this is not health insurance, and so
it's a community helping itself is basically what it is. Lewis Brown with us, Director of Catholic Healthcare Ministries, CMF Curo, is the affordable healthcare alternative to insurance for those who consider themselves to be Catholics and Christians. Lewis, just so I'm clear again then, so you pay a small amount into the fund every month, and then if you hear about Mrs. Smith or Mr. Brown, they're not feeling what you send them $20 or whatever you can afford. Is that how it works?
Right. So every week for our ministry, every month you receive a newsletter. Across the country, folks that are individuals in the ministry receive a newsletter. So we have about 1,200 households nationwide. We partner with Samaritan Ministries. They have 60,000 households. Every month you receive a newsletter that says, the Brown family had this medical incident. Please send your check here. So it's generally speaking the same amount every month. So for an individual, it's all total for us, it's a little under $300 per month. And you send most of that $300, you send that check directly to that person.
All right, so how do you know?
It's the same amount every month.
How do you know, okay, the Browns needed $10,000. We'll stay with that example. How do you know when they've reached the $10,000 and they don't get like 20 or 30 or 40 grand because it happened to be, the day before Christmas and people felt a little bit more like giving or whatever the cause may be? How do you know they've reached the amount they're supposed to have?
Sure. So we use an algorithm that essentially signposts all these households across the country so that we can direct the right amount of money to that household. So if they have a $100,000 medical bill or they have a $200,000 medical bill, we would direct, the appropriate number of members of the ministry to pay for that medical cost, specifically to that person. And so that's how it works. So by way of example, I was at the March for Life Rose Dinner a few days ago, and there's a close friend of mine who's a member of our ministry from Ohio. He had a heart attack, and those medical costs have been paid and are being paid in full by the members of the ministry. So anything from, I have a cold and I had to see my medical doctor, or I had something a little more serious and had to go to the hospital, to I had a heart attack, or even a cancer diagnosis after you join the ministry. Those things are shared in full by the members of the ministry, coming together, really bringing the love of God, so we are caring for each other directly, recognizing that government has a proper role to pay for these things, but there's other ways the community can come together, across the country to directly pay for each other's medical.
Well, it certainly is a fascinating approach, that's for sure. Do you expect that these sorts of things will be recognized in a new health care plan that is anticipated by this administration sometime in the next year or two, whenever they get their ducks lined up, that Obamacare will be gone, something new will be in place? Do you believe that what you're doing will remain legal and compatible with whatever law comes along?
Most definitely. So the Affordable Care Act, as it is written, has a section that designates members of healthcare sharing ministries nationwide to essentially meet the requirements of the individual mandate. It says they're exempt from the requirements of the individual mandate if they're a member of a healthcare sharing ministry that meets certain requirements. Secretary-designate Price, he's not been confirmed, but he's the designee by President Trump. I went to the Dirksen building here in Washington, D.C., where his confirmation hearing was held. I was in the overflow room for part of it. Couldn't get into the initial domain room, but
right.
His plan, which he wrote when he was in Congress, is called the Empowering Patients First Act, and one of the provisions or one of the sections within that legislation talks about providing health savings accounts for members of healthcare sharing ministries. So Secretary Price is very aware of the importance of healthcare sharing, and we would expect that to be promoted in whatever new health care improvements that this administration makes in the next years to come.
Lewis Brown, Director of Catholic Healthcare Ministry. Real quickly, a website where people can find out more.
Sure, it's mycatholichealthcare.com. Mycatholichealthcare.com.
Mycatholichealthcare.com. Something completely different and worth consideration, and something different to think about this Tuesday. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you, Steve. Great to talk to you.
Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Tuesday here on the program, a lot of snow being spread across the state today. Not heavy amounts, but enough to make things a bit difficult out there. Randy figured he'd slalom all the way to work and talk to us while he was doing it. Randy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Steve, how you doing today?
Doing well, yourself?
Good. Hey, Steve, during my commute, I've said before, I commute. I drive toward Livingston County from Genesee County, and I can't pick up your station. So I instead do intelligence. I pick up progressive liberal communiques over FM radio and listen to NPR to find out what their strategies are. Well, this morning they talked to Indiana Congressman Andre Carson, who is a black man and a Muslim. And they were asking his opinion of Donald Trump's immigration executive order. And, of course, he didn't have anything good to say about it. And then he added that he said, your listeners need to know that according to FBI data, that white supremacists do more violence against Muslims than Muslims against the population.
And that's such garbage, Randy, and you know that. I mean, the fact of the matter is there are almost zero white supremacists in America, even according to the Southern Poverty Law Center that goes very wide on such statistics. I appreciate the call. Check out 1600 Wham out of Ann Arbor, or 1470 WFNT Flint. I'm just trying to help fill in your drive time there, Randy, because I appreciate the support. Switching gears back to health for just a moment here. Dr. John Wycoff, my good friend here, because in the dead of winter, sometimes you feel like dead weight. You don't go to the gym. You don't feel healthy. You don't take care of yourself. And good Lord, you gain some weight, and that's not good. Doctor, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Steve. And I've been listening to your show, and it sounds like maybe you and some of your listeners are very stressed out about the weather and the president and the politics. There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Well, what should I do about my stress? I've got a couple of ideas. What are yours?
Well, I think you're right. Number one, you have to recognize maybe what you can control and what's out of your control. And then, two, if you really find that stress you're experiencing is affecting your relationship, affecting your sleep, affecting your energy, not allowing you to get out and eat well, exercise, then you should come to Wycoff Wellness. We can get you on a natural program, help alleviate that stress, get you on an eating program, and try to motivate you to make the right changes you need to maintain optimal health.
Well, there you go. And if it affects your love life, even worse. I mean, if you get stressed out, right?
You know, you're exactly right. And that's really a big issue, and it'd be one worth talking about at some point. It's just that libido and sex drive in both men and women, you know, a sign of health is having the desire to have sex. And oftentimes that declines with age. People just kind of blow it off, don't talk about it. But oftentimes there are natural solutions, natural supplements, natural changes that can restore libido, restore sex drive, and make you feel healthy again.
You know, this is going to give me a little bit of trouble. For the record, I'm not that old. I'm not that stressed. Anyhow, what other things should we do in the winter to feel better, Doctor?
Well, you know, a couple things. You want to stay healthy. There's a lot of people with influenza right now, a lot of people with upper respiratory infections. So one, you know, washing your hands frequently, eating healthy, you know, getting plenty of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, lean meats, cut back on the sugar and the carbs. Make sure you're taking the right vitamins, a high-quality multivitamin mineral supplement, something like Phyto Multi that we have here at Wycoff Wellness, clinically proven to get you back to health and wellness. Getting enough vitamin D3. You know, we haven't seen the sun in Michigan now for like 6 weeks.
I know, I was missing it.
It is depressing.
Yeah.
And vitamin D is the most important vitamin to help maintain your immune function. Also, it helps with seasonal affective disorder. Who can't be a little depressed when you walk out day after day and it's cloudy and it's in the teens? That's depressing. Let's be honest.
No question. And I want to impress upon you, the listeners, that Dr. John Wycoff is one of the folks that makes this program possible every day. He's been a great partner for a very long time. I appreciate his support, and he does a great job for me, and I appreciate that you're a supporter and a partner of the program. Tell the folks where your website is, because I know you have a sale that's continuing into 2017 here where they can get discounts no matter where they live in the state. Real quick, Doctor.
We're at wycoffwellness.com. You're right. Our January promotion, we've extended it through this Friday, February 3rd, 20% all of our quality supplements, both online at wycoffwellness.com or in store, 20% or more off all of our services. So contact our office, and you'll save some money, get looking better, feel great this year.
wycoffwellness.com. And, Doctor, I thank your partnership. I truly do. I appreciate it for making it all possible.
Have a great day, Steve. Thank you.
There you have it, Dr. John Wycoff, everybody. And listen, it's people like Dr. John Wycoff that make this program possible, so I ask you to support them, wycoffwellness.com, and support all of the advertisers that you hear on this program, whether they're statewide, national, or in your local community. Support the folks that support this program and make it possible, because that makes it possible for you and I to have a discussion. The hotline number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Love to get you on the line here today. We're going to leave the phone lines open. What do you think about Lansing, Michigan becoming a sanctuary city? What do you think about President Donald Trump firing the acting Attorney General Sally Yates because she said, I'm not going to enforce your immigration measures? What do you think about Barack Obama breaking with tradition and breaking protocol and openly criticizing Donald Trump just 10 days after Barack Obama left the White House. And who do you think is going to be the new Supreme Court justice coming in? All of these questions on the table for you today. Drive carefully out there. There's a lot of snow going on, but all of these questions are on the table for you today. The one getting the most comments is Lansing, Michigan, and the Mayor Virgil Bonero moving forward with a plan to turn Lansing, Michigan into a sanctuary city. Are we not a nation of laws? I ask you, are we not a nation of laws? I believe that we are. I believe that we're supposed to be. And I wonder what's going on. We are a nation of immigrants, but also a nation of laws, and it's wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to allow the kind of immigration abuse we've seen in recent years, and we must not allow it to continue. So said Bill Clinton in January of 1995. He was right about that. You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show. All right, 55 after on a Tuesday. We got some calls here. We're going to try to get through as many as we can. We're going to start with Sam checking in from Grand Rapids, WJRW there. Sam, welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning. I was going to comment on the shooting in the mosque in Canada. It's kind of funny that they immediately called it a terrorist attack when generally if it is an attack aimed at a Christian or a Jewish entity, they don't initially call it a terrorist attack. And I notice they haven't released the names of the individuals, even though they've been arrested. I imagine they're probably dark, swarthy fellows who, when you pronounce their name, it sounds like you're coughing up a hairball.
All right, Sam, thank you for checking in. Greatly appreciate it. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. We'll keep an eye on what happened in Canada, Quebec City, I guess it was. John checking in Lansing. John, what's on your mind?
Yeah, real quick, I was frustrated about this press release by the mayor. Last time I looked, President Trump won Michigan, so I don't see how he can come out so strongly saying that the citizens are for this kind of thing. And the whole thing about legal immigration is about the safety of Muslims, Jews, Christians, non-religious people altogether. It's not about just prohibiting Muslims from coming in. Muslims against Muslims are a lot of times the types of attacks that are going on. So this is to protect all of our citizenry, and I'm really disappointed in the mayor saying that.
Thank you, John. Thank you for checking in. It's not a ban on any religion. It's unless Syria and being Syrian is a religion, it's not, and neither is being Somalian. Chris in Lansing, we can get you in time. Chris, what's on your mind?
Hello, Steve. I like your show a lot. I just want to say that I already think Lansing is pretty much a sanctuary city by proxy. I've lived here for a long time, seen a lot of things with my own eyes, but, hey, I don't even think the Republican Party runs for mayor or anything in the city of Lansing. I think that's a big problem, but I'm going to do everything to stop it. But they've already had one meeting on it, and they don't give us any notice, but I would suggest that anybody who wants to show up at the next meeting be there, and that's the only way you're going to stop it.
Chris, I appreciate it. You do it through showing up and participating in the process. You're right, it was a surprise attack by the mayor of Lansing and the city council. No notice. I got notice at 5 minutes to 5 for a 5:30 meeting. Can you imagine? It's the Steve Gruber Show. Back with more of your calls and comments after this.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Tuesday here on the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you on board this hour, brought to you by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas for businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy, know your own power. It's unprecedented the things that are happening in politics in the nation's capital and with everything going on. The acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, fired last night by President Trump, quickly replaced because she said she would not enforce his temporary ban on refugees and immigrants coming from the 7 nations with ties to terrorism. Yeah, she made a serious mistake, according to Alan Dershowitz. Dershowitz, of course, the hard-left Harvard law professor. Alan Dershowitz said she made a serious mistake. Yates, an appointee of Barack Obama, was engaging in what Dershowitz called holdover heroism. He said that on CNN. Probably they are shocked. It's so easy to be a heroine when you're not appointed by this president and when you're on the other side, said Dershowitz. She made a serious mistake. And he said what Donald Trump has ordered is perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. He cited the difference between green card holders, those who are in the country already and who need to be deported, and those who are applying for visas. There's also a distinction between what's constitutional, what's statutorily prohibited, and he said this is a bad policy, but it's a legal policy. And he said that Yates made a political decision rather than a legal one. We have a hobby in this country, said Dershowitz, and I want you to pay attention, very close attention, to his next comment. We have a hobby in this country. If you don't like something, you assume, you believe it's unconstitutional. Noting even Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, also a Harvard law professor, has made the same mistake. So there's Alan Dershowitz. Meanwhile, President Obama breaking protocol, breaking precedent by speaking out against Donald Trump just 10 days after he left the White House and Donald Trump became the president of the United States. It's always been a long-standing unwritten rule, if nothing else, that you do not criticize your successor. The predecessor kind of goes into the horizon, into the sunset. Barack Obama has plenty of golf to play, but he came out swinging, attacking Donald Trump on this. Obama, who has remained silent for a whole 10 days, pledged before leaving office to only speak about policy moves where I think our core values may be at stake. Newsflash, Mr. Former President. You signed this into law in December of 2015. This is your law. This is your list of countries. Let's stop the nonsense, okay? Starbucks jumping into the fray, and you can vote with your money or not with your money at Starbucks. Howard Schultz, the CEO at Starbucks, says he will be hiring 10,000 refugees over the next couple of years. I guess he's not concerned about the 500,000 American veterans that are without jobs today, this morning. I guess he's not as concerned about the 50,000 American veterans that are homeless today. Seems to me Howard Schultz is more concerned about the possibility of refugees coming here, refugees that may not even be here yet. He's more concerned about those folks than the 42 million kids without enough food today in America. I think that Howard Schultz ought to get his priorities straight. Donald Trump promised to put America first, to look out for America's citizens first, not to exclude the world, as we are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. And if Starbucks is going to choose refugees and people that are not from here while our own citizens are suffering, then I, my friends, will choose something besides Starbucks forever. Trust me, forever. Meanwhile, as the chaos and nonsense continues, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, in defense of his sanctuary city status for New York City, says that, driving drunk, not a serious offense. And you're like, whoa. That's what he said. If you're here illegally and you get caught drunk driving, that's not serious enough for you to be escorted out of the country. Not really a serious offense. In fact, I've got it on tape for you. So shocked I was. I believe it's clip 16. Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York downplaying the seriousness of drinking and driving. Go.
Jake, there are 170 offenses in that law that are listed as serious and violent crimes that lead to automatic cooperation between the city of New York and our federal partners. So any serious and violent crime, we're going to work with them. Someone commits a minor offense. For example, right now, if you didn't have clear definitions like we have, let's say someone had a small amount of marijuana, let's say someone went through a stop sign, they could be deported for that, and their family could be torn apart, and you could have children left behind where the breadwinner in the family is sent back to a home country. That is not good for anyone. So we differentiate. Anyone who's violent, anyone who's a serious threat to society, we agree, we'll work with the federal partners, and they get deported. But we are not going to see, with 500,000 undocumented people here, this would be true for 11 to 12 million undocumented folks in this country, the vast majority of whom are law-abiding. We're not going to see families torn apart over a very minor offense.
But is grand larceny or drunk driving a very minor offense?
Drunk driving that does not lead to any other negative outcome, I could define as that.
Rich Mallow, by the way, from the New York State Executive Director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, has a very different opinion of whether drunk driving is serious, whether something else bad happens while you're driving drunk. He'll be joining us here on the program in just a couple of minutes. The hotline number, we've got room for a couple of calls real quickly, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. We got Dan checking in from Marquette. Dan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Every time I hear these people talking about breaking up families, I have to ask the question, who's breaking up the families? The kids are allowed to go back with them. We're not breaking up families.
I would happen to agree with you. The families can stay together. By the way, last night during the Lansing City Council meeting, Virg Bonero, the mayor of the city of Lansing, capital city of Michigan, pushing the idea of Lansing being a sanctuary city. Dan, what do you think of that?
I think the minute they don't get a check that they're supposed to get from the federal government, all of these people will change their minds very quickly.
Dan, thank you for checking in. Let's go to Dana checking in from Grand Rapids. Dana, welcome to the program.
Hi, Steve. You know what? That goof just said, we're not going to break them up and I agree with the previous caller, we're not breaking the families up. They are. They chose to do this to their own families, come here illegally. But I want to comment on what that mayor said to Blasio. I can't stand that man. But he said, we're not going to break them up over a minor offense. They're mostly law-abiding.
Let me ask you this. I got to run, Dana. I got to run, but here's the question. How many families have been broken up by drunk driving permanently?
Exactly.
Thank you for checking in. I got to run.
The Steve Gruber Show, American Values with Midwestern Common Sense.
Tuesday on the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you on board. If you need to find out more, go to stevegruber.com where you can get the podcast and so much more. Plus, you can catch us on Facebook, The Steve Gruber Show, and follow us on Twitter. Thank you for the support. On the hotline, before we get to our next guest, Rush, checking in from Mackinac City. Rush, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me. In regards to the comment about drunk driving, a friend of mine was killed in Southern California by a drunk driver actually running a stop sign, and he's also commented that running a stop sign wasn't a serious crime. Well, if that gentleman had not have been drunk and ran that stop sign, a good friend of mine would still be alive today. So
let me ask you this, Rush. Let me ask you this. Did that break up a family?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
His mother, misses him every day. His father misses him every day. And unfortunately, at the time, he had an unborn baby, so that child is now growing up without a father.
An orphan. And Bill de Blasio thinks that it's no big deal to drive drunk if you're an illegal alien in America, in New York City. Rush, thank you for checking in. That's the kind of story that we'll have here in a moment with Rich Mallow, the New York State Director of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, who'll join me shortly. But first, Byron Henry here, attorney, constitutional scholar. Byron, welcome back to the program.
Great to be with you.
Hey, real quickly, tell me about this, the firing of Sally Yates, the acting attorney general who got the boot. They're calling it the Monday Massacre. The Democrats are, of course. It doesn't compare to what happened in October of 1973 when Richard Nixon fired his own people. But, hey, they say everything's unprecedented to the Democrats, apparently. You tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, first and foremost, the attorney general serves at the pleasure of the president, and there's a couple principles at stake here, one of which, of course, is should the attorney general follow if she believes it to be an unlawful order, the acting attorney general. And, of course, if she honestly believes that the order is unlawful or unconstitutional, she doesn't have to follow it. But the right thing to do there is to resign. It's not to be insubordinate and to refuse to enforce the law. In fact, even in her letter, she doesn't call the order unlawful. If the order is not unlawful, the DOJ policy has usually been, if there is a reasonable basis to defend a law or an executive order, the Department of Justice's job is to defend a law or an order of the President of the United States, unless there's basically no reasonable argument to make for its illegality. And even then, if the President orders you to defend an order, then your choice is not to be insubordinate and refuse to follow orders, but to, in fact, resign and say in good conscience,
I'm going to guess, Byron,
that order.
I'm going to guess that you've heard of Alan Dershowitz, and he said, we all have, Alan Dershowitz said she made a political decision, not a legal decision, and it was a bad one. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I would agree with Mr. Dershowitz 100% on that statement. She did not believe that it was, quote, right or just. That has nothing to do with her job. The President of the United States is elected by the people to determine what is right and just. Not to determine what's lawful, but to determine what's right and just. If she doesn't believe that her boss is acting in a rightly or justly way, as Mr. Dershowitz said, I believe that that's a political decision and she needs to step down.
All right. Attorney and constitutional scholar Byron Henry with us on the program. Let me ask you this, because you hear this a lot over the last 48 hours or 72 hours. It is unconstitutional for the president to block people coming in from these other countries. There's no truth to that whatsoever that I can find, but you're the expert. What say you?
I'm not aware of any constitutional right or any place in the Constitution that gives any person that is not a citizen of this country to come to this country for any reason, whether it to be to vacation, to work, to go to school, or for any other reason. That power is given plenary to Congress, and Congress can grant that privilege at its whim or deny that privilege at its whim. And in most of these cases, they have delegated the authority to administer immigration to the president, except in very rare instances. So as long as President Trump is coloring within the lines with respect to the law, meaning what Congress has said, and I believe in this case Congress has given him the right to suspend immigration from certain countries for periods of time in the best interest or for the safety of the United States, then there's nothing unconstitutional about that. The only thing I would say, Steve, is if someone is already here and has a visa and has a vested right to be here because they've already been vetted and they're on their way or they get here.
Different circumstance.
That is different, and they should have a judge. They should have a lawyer, and they should have a court decide whether or not they have any due process right to stay, and that's what's happening. That's the way
I agree with you. I agree with you. We are a nation of immigrants. We are also a nation of laws. That's who we are as Americans. Now, I want to ask you this next question. Federal judges in at least 4 different places now have said that they're not going to enforce Donald Trump's executive order imposing restrictions on immigration. Do they have that latitude, these federal judges appointed, by the way, by Barack Obama? Do they have that latitude in your estimation?
Well, first, I believe that most of the federal judges that have entered orders have simply entered stay orders which said until we have a chance to have a hearing on this, a full hearing with briefing from both sides, the only thing they've said is you can't send these people back. You have to let them stay until we can have a hearing, which I believe is the correct course because what they're doing is preserving the status quo because once you send someone back, they're gone. And if they did have a right to be here, then, of course, you can't fix that problem. So that's a very limited scope relief. I don't know federal judges entering orders that basically say Donald Trump's orders are unconstitutional or we're not going to enforce them. There hasn't even been any full hearings yet. So I believe this incremental step of holding these people here, and I'm not even sure very many are even being held anymore, until they can determine whether they can stay, is exactly what the court should do to make sure these people that are here don't have due process rights. With respect to those coming from other countries, no, the courts have no right or no role in saying that President Trump cannot keep people wait 90 days and post pause on immigration from other countries as long as Donald Trump stays within the statutes that Congress has passed.
Yeah, I have a copy of the Constitution right here. I see nothing referring to immigration or those of foreigners from other nations. And I think that what we've gotten into is a bad habit of when people don't like something, especially those on the left, don't like something, they just start screaming it's unconstitutional, even though generally that's just not the fact. Byron, I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and you have to be careful. I mean, if you're going to make arguments, I mean, I'm a structural conservative. I believe that courts and Congress should check the president and vice versa, and therefore I want to make sure that everyone stays within their within the checks and balances. But in this case, the Constitution doesn't speak to this directly.
And Byron Henry, I think we should also have you back after we learn who the president's choice is to fill Antonin Scalia's seat on the Supreme Court and what's going to happen. Byron Henry, always a pleasure. Byron Henry, attorney and constitutional scholar here on the program. 25 after, you're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
All right, welcome back to it. As we've been talking about a little bit here today, we've talked about the fact that New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio doesn't consider drunk driving to rise to the level that somebody should be deported if they're an illegal alien in New York City, a sanctuary city. He believes, it's not a serious offense. I didn't say it. He said it. Listen to this. He's talking on CNN. Mayor Bill de Blasio talking about drunk driving. Go.
Jake, there are 170 offenses in that law that are listed as serious and violent crimes that lead to automatic cooperation between the city of New York and our federal partners. So any serious and violent crime, we're going to work with them. Someone commits a minor offense. For example, right now, if you didn't have clear definitions like we have, let's say someone had a small amount of marijuana, let's say someone went through a stop sign, they could be deported for that, and their family could be torn apart, and you could have children left behind where the breadwinner in the family is sent back to a home country. That is not good for anyone. So we differentiate. Anyone who's violent, anyone who's a serious threat to society, we agree, we'll work with the federal partners, and they get deported. But we are not going to see, with 500,000 undocumented people here, this would be true for 11 to 12 million undocumented folks in this country, the vast majority of whom are law-abiding, we're not going to see families torn apart over a very minor offense.
But is grand larceny or drunk driving a very minor offense?
Drunk driving that does not lead to any other negative outcome, I could define it as that.
A very minor offense, not a serious threat to the rest of us. So says Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City. My next guest has a very different opinion. As you just heard, a caller, Rush called from Mackinac City, Michigan, said a close friend of his was killed by a drunk driver that was here illegally. So that broke up families permanently. My next guest, Rich Mallow, is the New York State Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Rich, thank you for joining me on the program.
Not my pleasure. Thanks, Steve.
I know you're traveling today, so this is the kind of day that we should take a moment and talk about drunk driving. Is drunk driving a serious threat? Is drunk driving a very minor offense? Which is it?
It's actually horrifying to hear the mayor of New York City that has a project called Project Zero, where they're trying to eliminate all highway and traffic deaths, would call drunk driving a minor incident. I can tell you the victims of this horrific crime, and it's a crime, how do you minimize those people? If you get behind a wheel and you've been drinking, it's a crime. It is not a minor crime. 311 people last year died because of drunk drivers.
In the state of New York?
In the state of New York. In the country, over 10,000 people died last year because of drunk driving. In New York, over 6,000 people were injured. Nationally, that number is over 290,000 people.
Plus,
drunk driving is not a minor incident.
Right. Plus, you put in there the families affected, the long-term emotional scar, the wreckage of people's lives and what's left, because the mayor's there talking about we're not going to tear families apart. I'm going to guess that 311 people that died in New York and the 10,000 that died in America last year tore families apart permanently. And the 300,000 people that were injured tore families apart permanently. I'm completely offended by what the mayor said here, and I find it frankly shocking.
It is shocking. And I also want to say, drunk driving, Mothers Against Driving, this is nothing about and has nothing to do with the immigration. This is a crime that happens every single day, and this is not a minor offense.
And we have to make sure that it's treated as a major offense, and we should make sure that we stop this. And we do everything in our power, not to minimize, but to maximize what this does to these families, whether a family loses somebody in a death or someone is horrifically injured. This costs this country billions of dollars a year, and it's because people are acting in a to be very blunt, in a very bad way. You don't drink and get behind the wheel of a car. You don't take drugs and get behind the wheel of a car and drive.
Period.
It's a weapon.
Yeah, period. All right, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Rich Mallow here, the New York State Executive Director, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, not pleased at all with the comments from New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio saying that, drunk driving is not a serious offense. What do you think should happen to someone if they're here illegally and they get caught drunk driving? They're over the legal limit, or in many places they have what they call super drunk now. I know in Michigan that's 0.17. If somebody's here, they get caught drunk driving or super drunk, should they be expelled from the country?
Well, I'm not going to get into the immigration piece, but I could tell you in New York, it's not called super drunk. It's aggravated. It's called aggravated.
Yes.
And if you're drinking and driving and you get caught in New York or anywhere else in this country, you should be prosecuted to the legal limit of the law. Period. And it doesn't matter if you're a legal immigrant, an illegal immigrant, a citizen of this country. It doesn't matter what you are. You should be prosecuted. That's the bottom line. It's a crime that kills and maims people and rips families apart every single day.
Well, let me ask you this, Rich. I'll phrase the question a bit differently then. When you hear Mayor Bill de Blasio say this is not a serious threat, say that drunk driving is a very minor offense, if nothing else bad happens, is basically what he said there. I couldn't believe it. What is your message to New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio when you hear that?
This is directly to Mayor de Blasio. If you really believe in your Project Zero and you really want to do the right thing for the citizens of your city, put an end to drunk driving. It doesn't matter. It is not a minor crime. It is a major crime, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving would be more than happy to work with him and stop this crime and stop people from getting behind the wheel of a car when they've been drinking.
Maybe Bill de Blasio needs a little bit of education, is what it sounds like potentially, because that's what you do every day.
A lot of education.
I mean, you're on your way to Albany today, right? Because you continue to work and you spread the word every day to do not drink and drive. That's your job every day, right, Rich?
Every single day.
All right.
Every single day.
If people want to, look you up, find out more, do you have a website they could check out real quick?
Yeah, www.madd.org.
Rich Mallow, great conversation. Go ahead. You have one more thing?
I was just going to say, I'm in New York, but if you're in Michigan, you can go to that site anywhere in the country, and you can click on your state, and you'll get how MADD rates the state with regards to drunk driving, and you can get all of the information that you need.
All right. Give me that website one more time.
www.madd.org, MADD.org.
Rich Mallow, thank you for the conversation. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you having me.
There you have it. This is not a very minor offense, as Bill de Blasio puts it. It's a very serious offense. 41 after. You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Hold your head high. Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Hold your head up.
All right. It's Tuesday here in the program. The big news coming later today. The big news coming later today will be the pick for the Supreme Court vacancy left when Antonin Scalia died in February. That'll be the big news we turn to today, see if it changes the narrative from the nonsense surrounding the immigration, the disingenuous behavior of the left, who, by the way, supported such measures not that long ago. Let's be honest, we're a nation of immigrants. We're also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to allow the kind of immigration abuse we've seen in recent years. We must not allow it to continue. So said Bill Clinton in January of 1995. What'd you say? All right, go ahead and play that.
We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
All right, Lee, and standing ovation. And let's talk about, let's be honest. In 2011, Barack Obama banned all immigrants from the nation of Iraq for 6 months. This is a 120-day pause while we get our affairs in order. In 1979, Jimmy Carter threw Iranian students out of the country altogether. If their papers were, he threw them out altogether. Made 50,000 of them, I believe the number was, report to the government to see if they were in order, if they could even stay. So the disingenuous behavior of the Democrats, or is it even the same Democratic Party anymore? Do you think if John Kennedy strode in today and looked around the room, he'd have any idea what was going on? Do you think that if he was at the Women's March in Washington on January 21st, would John Kennedy have any idea what he was looking at? The hotline number, 888-900-9966. Dave standing by in Williamston. Dave, good morning. Dave, are you there? All right, Dave, is he all right? You think he's okay? Don't know what's going on there. Dave seems to be whistling to himself. You'll have that. Maybe he's just having a happy day. Let's see here. Speaking of Donald Trump and other things we haven't got to see, there's so much to get to. Let's look at this. It's clip 10. I want to share with the listeners here. Alex, President Trump spoke to the press as he signed an executive order aimed at significantly cutting regulations for small business to open up the throttle on the economy. Go with clip 10.
So this is small business, and this is regulation, and this will be the largest ever cut by far in terms of regulation. These folks are small business owners, and they're great people. They've been representative of the community, the small business community. If you have a regulation you want, number one, we're not going to approve it because it's already been approved probably in 17 different forms. But if we do, the only way you have a chance is we have to knock out 2 regulations for every new regulation. So if there's a new regulation, they have to knock out 2. But it goes far beyond that. We're cutting regulations massively for small business and for large business, but they're different, but for small business. And that's what this is about today. And this will be the biggest such act that our country has ever seen. There will be regulation, there will be control, but it will be a normalized control where you can open your business and expand your business very easily.
So while the left goes crazy, Donald Trump continues to move forward with the work of America and doing what he was elected to do. And as I was on the BBC yesterday, I told the folks on Newsnight that I believe if the election were held today, Donald Trump would end up with more votes than he did before. Boris Epshteyn, one of the members inside the Trump White House, joining me here real quickly on the phone. Boris, welcome to it.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've seen you a lot on television lately. But let's get to it real quick. We don't have a lot of time here. Despite the hysteria on the left, Donald Trump is moving forward with the agenda that he promised he would deliver in a timely fashion. And trust me, here in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, I think he would get more votes today than he did on November 8th. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%, Steve. And we talked about this during the campaign. This was a candidate who said that he was going to make America strong, secure, safe, and working. And that's exactly what he's done. He did it during the transition. most productive transition probably in the history of this country, and he's done it in the first 8-9 days of this administration. I could not be more proud to be a part of his team and working hard for America and Americans.
How do you address the hysteria, the meltdown, the panic attack from the left that you're dealing with pretty much every day?
It's a distraction, right? We're focused on moving forward, focused on bringing jobs back to America. Look at the Small Business Roundtable yesterday, the executive order on deregulating our country. There's so much overregulation. Of course, on keeping this country secure. That's what the refugee executive order is meant to do. And big announcement tonight on the Supreme Court, putting 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and they're moving ahead with a country that is fully organized and fully set on being strong and secure.
Boris Epshteyn on the phone with us from the Trump administration. Boris, let's just go ahead and get it right out of the way right now. Who's the nominee going to be? That way we make a little news now. Won't bother anybody. I won't tell anybody. Who's the nominees for the Supreme Court going to be?
I'm not gonna be sharing that, Steve, but I will tell you that whoever the nominee is, it'll be somebody who represents the strong values of the American people.
Yeah, I'm shocked that you're not going to share with me, Boris. I'm shocked by that.
Well, good question. I respect you for asking.
Well, you got to ask for Lord. If you don't ask the question, you don't get the answer. Anyhow,
that's right.
That's a big deal. Obviously, the immigration is a big deal, and getting rid of regulations. But I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word, Boris.
I'm so excited for the American people. This administration is working hard every day to make sure Americans who go to work are safe, are secure, and they are able to go to work and they have jobs. And all we want is for the American people to see through the hysteria, see through the bias of the left-wing media, and look at everything that's getting done, all the presidential actions, over 15 presidential actions in just the first 10, 11 days, and be excited and be resolute as a country that we're moving forward.